The boot camp was alive with laughter and chatter, the recruits fresh-faced and eager to prove themselves, their voices echoing off the barren walls of the training facility. They joked and pushed each other, testing boundaries as they settled into the grueling routine ahead. Among them was a figure who seemed just like any other, blending in with the crowd, her smile easy and her laughter genuine. But beneath her calm exterior, something lingered, a story hidden beneath the surface that no one yet noticed. The drills were relentless, the days long, but the recruits found comfort in the camaraderie that laughter brought. Even the drill sergeants seemed momentarily softened by the youthful energy that pulsed through the camp. But the atmosphere was deceptive, for within the laughter lay an undercurrent of tension waiting to surface. One afternoon, during a routine assembly, the SEAL commander entered the mess hall. Her presence commanding yet subtle, the room fell silent, save for the whispers of recruits unsure what to expect. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, pausing briefly on a forearm revealed as the recruit adjusted her sleeve. A tattoo caught her attention, intricate, detailed, and unmistakably significant. The laughter died down as the commander's gaze locked onto the tattoo. The room held its breath, sensing that something was about to change, but no one could have predicted what the tattoo meant or how it would alter the course of their training. The SEAL commander took a slow, deliberate step forward, her voice low but filled with authority. The recruits shifted uneasily as they waited for her next move. What she revealed next would shatter assumptions and reshape their understanding of who stood among them. The tattoo was not just ink. It was a symbol of a past steeped in courage, sacrifice, and secrets that some hoped would remain buried. But the commander knew better. She saw beyond the surface to the truth waiting to be uncovered. The recruits looked at the girl differently now, the laughter replaced by whispers, questions, and the flicker of respect. The commander's gaze lingered a moment longer before she turned and left the room, leaving behind a silence that screamed of the coming storm. What no one realized was that this was only the beginning, and that the tattoo would soon reveal a story far greater than anyone could imagine. The recruits were about to learn that beneath the laughter lay a warrior whose past would challenge them all. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the camp held its breath, waiting for the next move in a game none of them fully understood. The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds as the recruits gathered their gear and prepared for the day ahead. The laughter from the previous day had faded, replaced by a tense energy that buzzed quietly beneath the surface. The tattoo lingered in the minds of many, a silent question mark in a sea of uncertainty. The SEAL commander's gaze still haunted their thoughts, and the realization that the girl they had once dismissed as just another recruit held a secret that none could yet grasp. During a routine inspection, the commander moved swiftly among the lines, her eyes sharp and assessing. Each recruit stood at attention, muscles tense, but it was the tattoo that drew her gaze repeatedly, a symbol etched deeply on the forearm of the quiet recruit. A symbol that spoke of a past filled with battles not seen on the training ground, but etched in blood and honor. The commander's mind raced, trying to piece together the story hidden behind the ink, an enigma wrapped in silence. Her curiosity turned to cautious investigation as she quietly sought information, piecing together whispers from records and conversations that others overlooked. The tattoo was no ordinary mark. It was a badge of valor from missions that were classified and dangers few had survived. The girl had lived a life beyond the understanding of most of the recruits, a life where courage was tested in the harshest of fires, and survival was a daily battle. As the days passed, the commander observed the recruit more closely, her movements precise, her responses sharp, and her resolve unshakable. The recruits noticed the subtle change too. Whispers turned into speculation and speculation into awe, yet the tattoo remained a mystery, a silent testament to a history none dared to fully explore. The commander's instincts told her that revealing the truth too soon could unsettle the fragile balance of the group, but hiding it was no longer an option. One evening, as the camp settled into a restless quiet, the commander called the recruit aside a private moment away from the prying eyes and whispered rumors. The conversation was brief but charged with meaning, a passing of unspoken trust and acknowledgement of a shared burden. The tattoo was a key, a link to a past that would soon collide with the present, forcing all to confront truths buried beneath. The laughter and the scars. The recruit's eyes held a flicker of something rare, vulnerability mixed with fierce determination. She had carried the weight of her past alone for too long, and now the walls were beginning to crumble. The commander's presence was a silent promise that the burden would no longer be hers to bear alone, but that the path ahead would demand more than courage. It would require the strength of an unbreakable team forged in fire and trust. Back among the ranks, the recruits could feel the shift, the air thick with anticipation, and the unspoken understanding that their world was about to change forever. The laughter that had once filled the boot camp was replaced by a charged silence as the truth hovered just beyond reach, like a storm gathering on the horizon. The tension built each moment, drawing them closer to a revelation that would test their limits and redefine their bonds, and so the stage was set, the players ready. But the final act was still a mystery. The tattoo was more than a mark. It was a beacon, a warning, and a challenge wrapped in ink and flesh. The SEAL commander knew the time was coming when the recruit would have to step out of the shadows and into the light, exposing a truth that could either unite or shatter them all. The recruits held their breath, waiting for the next move, unaware that the laughter was gone, and in its place a story was unfolding, a story of courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding power of truth. The sun rose over, the camp casting a pale light on the soldiers gathered in the training yard. The once boisterous laughter was now replaced by a heavy silence, as everyone sensed the change in the air. The SEAL commander's discovery of the tattoo had shifted the atmosphere from casual camaraderie to something far more serious. Eyes watched the recruit, closely searching for signs of what lay beneath her calm exterior. The tattoo was a silent challenge, an unspoken story that demanded to be told, but no one yet knew how deep the truth went. The recruit moved with a quiet confidence that belied her youthful appearance. Her every step, measured every glance, deliberate, as if carrying the weight of 1,000 battles fought and won. Her fellow recruits found themselves drawn to her strength, yet kept their distance, unsure whether to approach or to give space. The whispers grew louder, questions hung in the air like thick fog. Who was she really? What secrets did that tattoo hide, and why had the commander singled her out? The commander watched from afar, her mind racing with the implications of what she had uncovered. She knew that this recruit was no ordinary trainee, but rather a soldier with a history forged in fire and blood. The tattoo was a mark of distinction earned through acts of valor on missions that few dared speak of. Yet revealing this truth to the rest of the unit was a delicate matter. It could inspire or it could divide and fracture the fragile unity they had built as the day wore on. The tension mounted. The recruits found themselves thrown into a series of grueling exercises, pushing their bodies and minds to the limit. The recruit with the tattoo excelled effortlessly, demonstrating skills and discipline that left others in awe. Yet beneath the surface there was a restlessness, a simmering storm waiting to break free. The commander knew that soon the truth would no longer be contained, and that the past would come crashing into their present lives. That evening, as darkness fell, the commander summoned the recruit to a secluded corner of the camp. The air was thick with unspoken words and the weight of anticipation. The recruit hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. She revealed fragments of her past, The missions, the sacrifices, the losses that had shaped her into the warrior standing before them. Now, the tattoo was a symbol of those experiences, a badge of honor and pain intertwined. The commander listened intently, understanding the burden carried silently for so long. The recruit's story was one of courage beyond measure, but also of isolation and the fear of being judged or rejected by those she was meant to lead. With this revelation, the commander extended a hand, a promise of trust and solidarity that would bind them together stronger than ever before. But the path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger as the secrets of the tattoo rippled through the ranks, sparking curiosity, suspicion, and admiration alike. Back among the recruits, the atmosphere shifted palpably. The story that had been whispered in shadows now took shape in the minds of all who heard it. The recruit was no longer just a fellow trainee, but a leader whose past commanded respect and whose future was intertwined with theirs. The laughter that once filled the camp was replaced by a solemn resolve, the quiet before the storm that was about to change everything. The tattoo had unlocked a door to a deeper reality, one that demanded bravery not just in battle, but in facing the truths that bind and break people. The SEAL commander and her recruit stood united at the heart of this unfolding story, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. But none could predict the twists and trials that awaited them, the tests of loyalty, courage, and sacrifice that would push them all to their limits. And as the night deepened, the camp held its breath, waiting for the moment when the laughter would return, or be forever silenced by the weight of the secrets revealed. The wind picked up that night, sweeping through the camp like a whisper from the shadows, carrying with it a weight none could name, but all could feel. The recruits sat in uneasy silence around the fire, their faces lit in flickering gold, their minds racing with questions they dared not ask aloud. The tattoo was no longer a mystery. It was a message, and its meaning ran deeper than any of them had imagined. The recruit, who bore it, now moved through the camp like someone reborn, not hiding, not boasting, just existing, with a clarity that made others pause and look twice. The SEAL commander had not spoken of it since the private conversation, but her demeanor had changed. Subtly, her eyes tracking the recruit with a mix of respect and readiness, as if waiting for a moment she knew would come. The team was called out before sunrise, briefed in clipped tones, and handed orders more serious than any drill they had seen. Before, it was not a simulation, not a test. They were being deployed on a real mission, and the tension that filled the air was sharp enough to cut as the transport roared to life, and the team boarded weapons in hand. The recruit found her place near, the rear quiet, and focused her eyes scanning the faces around her. They were no longer strangers. They were brothers and sisters bound by fire and doubt, and now the truth. She could see it in their eyes, the way they looked at her, no longer questioning, just following, knowing that when things went wrong, and they would, she would be there, not just to survive, but to lead. The terrain was unforgiving, a broken stretch of land, riddled with shadows and traps, every step a risk, every movement a potential last. They moved through it like ghosts, silent and swift until the first contact shattered the quiet. Bullets cracked through the air, slicing the silence and sending the team diving for cover. The recruit moved instinctively, her training and memory. Fusing into motion, her commands sharp and clean, cutting through the panic like steel through water. They rallied behind her, not because of her rank, not because they were told to, but because they trusted her, because they had seen her fire, and they knew it would not fail them. She led the push, flanking the threat and taking control, the tattoo on her arm, flashing as she raised it to signal a move, a mark now seen not as ink, but as legacy and promise. The SEAL commander watched from behind, eyes narrowed with pride and caution, seeing in her recruit the echo of battles past and the birth of something new. The mission unfolded in chaos and grit, moments of pure instinct and heart where every decision was measured in breath and blood. The recruit took point leading a maneuver that turned the tide of the confrontation, exposing the hidden position of the enemy and opening the path forward. She took a hit not deep, but enough to remind everyone that the cost of leadership was real and never without pain. Still, she pushed on, refusing to fall her presence, grounding the team like a lighthouse in a violent sea. By the time they exfiltrated under cover of night, the team was silent but changed. The silence was not fear or confusion, but reverence and understanding. They had followed someone into fire and come out whole, and now they saw her not just as a recruit, not even just as a leader, but as something rare, something earned. The SEAL commander approached her later as they waited for extraction, crouched beside her in the shadows, and for the first time called her by a name known only to those who had bled and fought in the darkest corners of the world. "You are one of us now," she said quietly. "Or maybe you always were, and we just did not see it." The recruit looked at her arm, at the tattoo that had started it all, and nodded once because no words were needed now. Not in this moment, not between warriors. The camp would never be the same, the recruits would never be the same, and she would never again walk among them unseen. But even as the dust of that mission settled, even as dawn broke once more over a camp filled with silent awe and new understanding, something stirred far beyond their reach. A whisper through classified channels. A signal intercepted a name spoken that had not been uttered in years. Her name. A face seen once more by enemies, thought defeated, a war not yet finished. And the tattoo that once brought questions now stood as a warning because the past had seen her and was coming for her again, and this time it would not come quietly. The sun hung low over the horizon, casting long shadows across the camp as the recruits returned from their mission, their bodies tired, their minds reeling from the adrenaline that still pulsed through their veins. The air was quiet, not with fear, but with reverence, a silence earned through action and proof. The recruit, once dismissed, once doubted, now walked among them as something else. Not just a peer, not even just a leader, but a legend unfolding before their eyes. She stood apart from the others for a moment, wiping blood from her sleeve, her gaze fixed on the distant hills as if sensing something out there, something coming. The SEAL commander approached, not with orders, not with questions, but with something heavier in her expression, something only those who had seen too many battles could understand. They exchanged no words, just a nod that spoke volumes. And then the commander handed her a sealed file. Thick, heavy, stamped with the kind of clearance most never even dreamed of. Inside was a name, a location, a photo. Grainy and black and white, a man whose face still haunted her dreams. A man she thought she would never have to face again. The recruit took a deep breath and closed the folder slowly. She had known this day would come. The tattoo had marked her not just as a survivor, but as a witness to something powerful, something dangerous and unfinished. Now it had come full circle, and the silence that followed her everywhere was no longer enough to hide from what was waiting on the other side. That night she packed her gear with precise movements, calm, steady, her expression unreadable as she folded each piece of equipment with the care of someone who knew that the next time she used it might be the last. Around her, the recruits watched, not with questions but with acceptance. They had seen her bleed. They had followed her into fire, and now they understood that her fight was not just theirs, but something much older and far more personal. As she stepped into the waiting transport, the commander placed a hand on her shoulder, a rare gesture heavy with meaning. "You do not have to do this alone," she said. But the recruit shook her head, because deep down she knew this path was hers to walk alone. Not out of pride, but because she was the only one who could finish what had begun so long ago. The engines roared to life and she disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind a camp forever, changed, and a group of recruits who would never again underestimate the quiet one. The road ahead led her deep into territory few dared to tread, where memory and danger blurred together, and every step felt like walking through shadows of the past. She tracked him through mountains, through silence, through coded transmissions and ghost towns, until at last she stood at the edge of a compound half buried in snow and stone. Her breath caught in her throat, not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to happen. She moved in silence, her weapon steady her mind, focused every movement a memory, every heartbeat a promise kept. Then she saw him, older, colder, but still the same face etched in history and pain. He turned slowly as if he had been expecting her all along, and the look in his eyes was not surprise, but something closer to respect or maybe regret. No words were exchanged, none were needed. They had both come to this place knowing only one would leave. She raised her weapon. Not with rage, but with the clarity of justice long delayed, and when it was done, when silence returned once more, she stood in the cold light of dawn and felt the past fall away piece by piece, like the snow melting beneath her boots. She returned. To camp days later silent as always, but different somehow. The others saw it in her eyes that something had ended and something else had begun. She rolled down her sleeve, covering the tattoo once more, not to hide it, but because now they understood, without needing to see it, and because some stories are better carried quietly by those who lived them. And though the laughter eventually returned to boot camp, softer, wiser, it was forever marked by the girl with the tattoo who had changed everything, without ever needing to say a word.